Hello and welcome to episode 266 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I am one of the co-founders here at ETR, and we are coming off of a ceiling projection saved me kind of week. Yes, that's right. I thought the cash team on DraftKings Sunday was very clear cut for the most part. But man, I was really struggling with the last 2v2. It was Cooper Kupp and Ricky Seals-Jones, or Keenan Allen and Khalil Herbert. Like, I literally changed it back and forth 3 or 4 times in the last 30 minutes before lock. And to be honest, I don't want to make a habit of not playing $4,600 running backs who are going to get roughly 100% of the running back touches in cash. Like, I don't want to make a habit of not doing that. Khalil Herbert was clearly an awesome play. But I also don't want to make a habit of passing on any receiver, wide receiver or tight end, playing 100% of the snaps, most of them in the slot, with a solid target share between 15 and 20% in a home game against the Chiefs. And that was Ricky Seals-Jones. And, I'm not trying to be results-oriented here, but I do think something to consider is how players separate from the field. Like, in order for a running back to really separate, he has to catch a bunch of passes and or score a bunch of TDs. Like, is Khalil Herbert with Justin Fields really going to erupt for a 30 ball? Is he really going to catch 4, 5, 6 passes? Is he really going to score a ton of touchdowns with the way the Bears are playing? And then on Keenan Allen, we've seen his ADOT, his yards per catch, his yards per route run really, really struggle this year. And honestly, his ADOT and his yards per catch were already really low. He needed a ton of targets, and this was a road spot in Baltimore. So, the bottom line is we had the Kupp RSJ side 0.9 DraftKings points ahead in base projection. But we had the Kupp RSJ side 5 points ahead in ceiling projection. Shout out to Leone and the analytics team for developing these super valuable ceiling projections. And just think about the way that Cooper Kupp is being used. 35% target share, targeted both short and deep. Rams throwing at such a high rate. The ceiling is just an absolute smash for Cooper Kupp, and he can really break a slate. We've already seen it. He's broken how many slates already? At least 3, maybe 4. So at the last second, I decided to go with the Kupp side, and it worked out. Obviously, the line between genius and dolt is very thin. If I go with the Herbert Keenan side, I'm sitting here saying, I suck. I play the Cooper Kupp side, and it's #HowRich, but I do think that in these close decisions, thinking about ceiling and who can really break a slate for you is worthwhile, even in cash. I want to touch on a couple other things, but first need to remind everyone the NBA season starts tonight. Our NBA team, led by Drew Dinkmeyer and Mike Gallagher, have been grinding their faces off, getting ready. We have full projections and ownership for every slate, top plays, shows, and more in the DFS product. And then we also have a separate props product, trying something new there. It will be similar to the way we're doing NFL props through the subscriber-only Discord. Head to the subscribe page on EstablishTheRun.com to check it out. 2 other things from the Week 6 slate I wanted to touch on. First is the Sterling Shepard stuff. So I honestly thought Darius Slayton was going to play. He was a late scratch, though. So that meant no Slayton, no Galladay, no Saquon. And Kadarius Toney was reportedly a bit bulky on his ankle in pregame. So we have a really condensed target share spot here in a home game against the Rams. Note that even in weeks 1 and 2, when most of the Giants were healthy, Sterling Shepard was earning target shares of 24 and 31%. So at just $5K, I thought getting on to Shepard made a lot of sense. Again, we punish the phone shitting bros, the ones making their lineups at 11 a.m. Eastern while on the shitter. We can punish them a little bit with that late news. The second thing I wanted to touch on was the thing that probably made the biggest difference in my week. And that was I didn't play any Davante Adams anywhere, cash or tournament. I knew that his ownership would be inflated off of that massive week 5 game that he had. But note that the price was up also. Up to an appropriate $9K. And this spot, most importantly, on the road against Chicago, to me, this is very clearly not a spot for Davante to find his ceiling. The Bears have played well against perimeter receivers. They're trying their best to hide Justin Fields at all costs. This was the first game Thorman identified in his article as a slow-paced slog. So yeah, Davante is never going to be a bad play, but I thought it was just a perfect spot to fade him in tournaments and not prioritize in cash, priced way up off last week. Matchup got way worse. Game environment way worse. Getting the bad result from Davante really was key. And I know this sounds really results oriented. I mean, Davante barely stepped out on a long touchdown. He obviously could have had a huge game. But even if we think that his chances of hitting an 80th percentile outcome is 10% less in this spot versus others, it's an easy fade given the price increase, given the ownership in GPPs, and given the cost in cash. All right, let's get to tournaments quickly. I am your local GPP bro, King GPP bro, actually. And so we better get to tournaments. And my best team was on DraftKings this week. It was a Mahomes, Tyreek, Hardman, RSJ stack. I thought a lot of the Mahomes stacks on DraftKings would include Kelsey because he was so cheap there. So I went Mahomes, Tyreek, Hardman. Still wanted to correlate tight end in the stack, so I ate the RSJ chalk. The mini stack, I knew I wanted to use Chuba Hubbard here. I thought he'd be relatively under-owned despite having like the true CMC role. Like since Rodney Smith has been gone the last couple weeks, Chuba Hubbard's role is ridiculous. And so given how strong running back was this week, I thought Chuba would be pretty under-owned. So I wanted to use him, and then I wanted to have a mini stack there. Thought about Justin Jefferson, thought about Dalvin Cook, but I really couldn't afford them. So I settled on the aging one, Adam Thielen. His price had really come down, $5,800. Still really good usage on Adam Thielen. Knew no one would play him, and I needed contrarian pieces here. And that was kind of what I was thinking about. If you're going to play Mahomes, Tyreek, Hardman, RSJ, well, you better get contrarian elsewhere. And I thought Thielen, Chuba was a good mini stack there, trying to keep that cumulative ownership down. Played Jonathan Taylor on this team, so clearly an elite play. More on that in a second. End of the lineup here, I think, was a pretty bad mistake. I had 7,700 left for flex and defense. I really didn't want to play into the Detroit or Baltimore D/ST chalk. And I really didn't like any other defenses that would fit. What fit was Odell Beckham and Brown's defense. But honestly, like playing them together, I think was really bad. Even in a small field, I had this in like a 300-person field. Brown's D and Odell. It's just when Brown's D scores touchdowns and dominates and plays well, Baker's attempts are going to be really muted. So maybe something like Brandon Cooks and Lions D would have been better. Although I think playing these cash, punt defenses that aren't very good is often really bad in tournaments. Like I played Lions D in cash, but I think it's really bad to play them in tournaments. But anyway, I think the team was overall good. A little frustrated with playing Odell and defense together. Hard to play the Mahomes stuff uniquely this week, though. So I thought it was okay. And that kind of brings me to my next point. As DFS fields, as our opponents get sharper, you can see it a bit in kind of the whole idea of pivots. In other words, it was pretty clear, at least to me, that Kareem Hunt, Darrell Henderson, and Khalil Herbert were the clear best running back plays. And they were the three highest owned running backs in the Wildcat. But people are very obviously looking for pivots. Jonathan Taylor was 22% owned. Joe Mixon, 18. Chuba Hubbard, 16. Swift, 15. I just want to be sure that I'm aware of the leveling that's going on. In other words, when I say leveling, I mean, that Kareem Hunt is the best play or D Hendo or whatever. So you go for the pivot, but then you think you're being sneaky and you run into a 22% Jonathan Taylor, which is fine, and it wasn't unexpected. We had Jonathan Taylor for 19%, but just need to understand what's going on. Last thing I'll point out about this slate was the Kareem Hunt thing. And it was just such a perfect example of late swap. Like, I don't think it gets any clearer or easier to understand than this. If you were behind or, just had a mess start at 1 o'clock or even a good start, but not a great one, swapping off Kareem Hunt was a must. We had him projected for 41% ownership. He came in at 33% in the $20 Millie Maker and 46% in the Wildcat. And he was a great play. Obviously. But man, the amount of people that you can pass. When Kareem Hunt is 40% owned, the amount of people that you can pass by pivoting to Cortland Sutton, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Josh Jacobs. All around the same price as Kareem Hunt. It's one football game. Anything can happen. Kareem Hunt can play poorly. He can get hurt. The Browns cannot show up. It's the NFL. So yeah, I hope everyone listening and subscribing understands how important late swap is now. We've been talking about it so much. Late swap is not just for injury-related things. Most of the field, 99% of the field, only swaps when there's an injury. But to play DFS at a high level, you're always swapping. It's constant based on the information that you have. Okay, I've talked long enough. let's get to everyone's favorite portion of the program, the listener questions. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. All right. Thanks to everyone for the questions. If I didn't get to yours this week, it's possible it will get in next week. Question 1 comes from CPAP. He says, say DraftKings or any sportsbook approaches you and wants you to manage/lead in setting their prop lines. But then obviously you couldn't bet them. What amount of money, if any, would it take to make this happen? Yeah, so obviously the prop betting game is very capped. In other words, we aren't going to get rich betting props because the limits are relatively low. And obviously that differs by book. Credit to some of them like DraftKings, FanDuel. They've been letting 500 a prop get in, no problem. I think some places, if you show a pulse, they'll cut you down to 50 or 20 or $5 quickly. So it's clear from a straight financial perspective, like, of course, setting the lines for books would be more popular, would be more profitable. I mean, the limits are just too low to really make a lot of money. But I will say that being on the other side, trying to beat the books, trying to take from big corporations, I mean, that's more fun, right? It's all in the game. They have to put out 1,000 props for an NFL weekend. We pick off the handful or 20 that we like. It's a much easier job. And honestly, like, I know CPAP says, what if they said that offered you money to set their lines for them? I mean, we basically are setting their lines for them in a lot of instances. They take some money from us, they move the line, and now millions of people betting on their site are betting into, what we think are better lines. And I guess what they think are better lines too. So yeah, we are working for them in a way. Last thing I want to be clear on with the prop stuff is, like, I'm not just doing this out of thin air myself. Like, all the credit goes to Leone and the data team for developing the model that we're using, and the projections team for getting all the volume inputs precise every week. And then there's a whole props team behind the scenes also. And, they're just killing it. I mean, we're 61-37 on the year in NFL. Shout out to us. Excited to get going on the NBA tonight. Question 2 from Joey Jackson. He says, if Gender Labs is so cutting edge, why aren't they using the metric system when evaluating tomb sense? So I had actually never heard this word, tomb sense, before. TUMESCENE. So, of course, I had to go to the dictionary and my God. And it says, tomb sense is the quality or state of being tumescent or swollen. Tomb sense usually refers to the normal engorgement with blood of the erectile tissues, marking sexual excitation and possible readiness for sexual activity. The tumescent sexual organ in males is the penis, and in females is the clitoris and other parts of the genitalia. I mean, Jesus, Joey. I mean, you guys are getting too smart for me here with this tomb sense stuff. I'm doing some fucking jokes and Joey shows up with tomb sense. I mean, just ridiculous. Question 3 from Bad Homie. He says, does having a cool cat, lazy lion, or pussy penguin NFT as your profile pic affect your PSM model? Yeah, so I was actually surprised at how much feedback my takes on NFTs got last week. A ton of people sent me messages saying they loved it. Obviously, some people got the wrong idea and thought I was anti-crypto or some kind of bear. Of course, I am not. I mean, not sure how many times over the last 6 years I've said that blockchain technology, digital currency, underlying technology is just going to win. Like, it's just so obvious it's going to win. Some people thought my take from last week meant I don't own any NFTs or anything. I mean, of course I own NFTs. I'm not trying to be a poor, and that was my only point. I'm in it to gamble and make money, and quote unquote investments. I'm not here to collect or anything like that, be a collector. I'm not here to make friends. But to address Bad Homie's question directly, he said, does having a cool cat, lazy lion, or pussy penguin as your profile pic affect the PSM model? I mean, the data on this is very clear. Yes. It affects it negatively. Yes. I'm sorry. I cannot refute the science and data. Question 4 from Varde. He says, how do you blend the mindset of a GPP bro and a cash game pro? I play both and have a hard time switching cash game thinking on/off in order to play GTO in GPPs. They are both DFS, but so different. Help me out, Levy Goat. Yeah, look, man, it's really hard. It's really hard to play both GPP and cash well. And it's a big reason I was so hesitant for a really long time to put more effort into GPPs. Like, obviously, there are only so many hours in a day, but perhaps more importantly, my brain just doesn't do well unfocused. You know, if you're putting your heart and soul and mind into cash and have all this action, well, my mind isn't going to do well trying to think about tournaments now for relatively small stakes. I do think that that understanding like the best or the right plays is a really big edge for tournaments. Like even if you're not playing cash, like understanding what the actual best plays are and what the actual optimal constructions are, I think helps. Like you understand what the field will do better. You understand where some cash plays are thin. And, you know, you understand that like why some guys are going to be owned or project well, and they might not have the same type of ceiling you want for GPPs. But yeah, you know, lately I've just kind of tried more to just let it be on cash. And I didn't do a good job of that this past Sunday with the whole last 2v2 thing, but I try not to spend hours on every 1v1 and 2v2. It's likely very close. You know, let's just make a decision here and move on to some tournament teams. And so, yeah, maybe cash suffers some, but if you want to be a GPP bro, you know, these are the sacrifices that we as GPP bros must make. Question 5 from Joey. He says, I appreciated your thoughts on money/time. When is the self-help book going to start rolling out? Oh, buddy, I take this question as a personal insult. It appears, Joey, you are not aware of the seminal book of our generation, the one that has been shaping young hearts and minds since it came out in 2019. Go ahead and look up Skin to Fur on Amazon or anywhere very important ebooks or really pamphlets like this are sold. Yeah, check it out. Question 6 from Printing Benjamins. He says, what is your process for going for a middle versus letting your original bet ride on player props? So I'd encourage people really to think about bets in a very uncorrelated way. In other words, if it's a plus EV bet, we're taking it. If it's not plus EV, we're not, period. It doesn't matter what else we bet. Doesn't matter how much we already have on X guy. Nothing else matters. If it's a good bet, we're betting it. So what happens typically on these props is we bet an under and the line moves pretty quickly, you know, sometimes drastically. If I thought the line moves so much that the over is now plus EV, then I'd bet it. But that's really, really rare. I think one spot that comes to mind where it was possible is when we got Kyle Pitts in the London game and we had bet the over on 39.5 yards, receiving yards, and it jumped to 45 or so. And then Calvin Ridley gets ruled out after that, and the Pitts line moves all the way to 61 yards. And we had a mean projection of 51. So in that spot, yeah, you know, the middle makes sense because the under was a plus EV bet also. But I'd never, ever go for the middle, you know, just for the sake of going for it or to hedge or any other nonsense like that. Basically, I'm just trying to stack up as many plus EV bets as I can over and over and over and over again and let the chips fall. Question 7 from Joe. He says, if you could choose any other profession, what would it be and why is it a relationship counselor? That's an interesting idea, man. I do think one of my strengths is seeing things from other people's point of view, like to the point that my wife and my friends get pissed at me. You know, they're all upset because someone did XYZ. And my first thought isn't to like be on their side and support them. My first thought is always, yeah, but did you consider that they looked at it in this way or they were thinking something else than you were? Where I guess I should just be like piling on, you know, like, yeah, fuck that guy. We're on the same team and you know, fuck, it doesn't matter what he was thinking. So yeah, I mean, here at Gender Labs LLC, aka Gender Consultants, we do some relationships therapy, some counseling, and our R&D team has very clearly shown 2 solutions on relationship counseling that work roughly 100% of the time. The man needs to help more, you know, clean up after yourself, help with the kids, cook some, etc. And the woman, well, it's tough for a woman to understand how much of the sex the man needs. I'll just leave it at that. That's it. We just saved you all tens of thousands of dollars in couples therapy. You're welcome. Easy game. All right, question 8, last question we're going to do today comes from Keith. He says, with your ever-expanding celebrity, are you concerned that one day you will have to explain to somebody like Donald Parham what the PSM is. I mean, what a humiliating experience telling some mega alpha you own a website where virgins joke about basing fantasy plays on projected cock size. Yeah, I mean, this whole thing is a good idea when I'm in the basement by myself. Obviously in the real world, it's a mess. I was actually out on Saturday night. I went to this bar, like ping pong bowling type place. And we bumped into someone, friend of a friend or whatever. And it's this woman. She's probably like, I don't know, 45. And she starts asking what I do. So I go with the, I do this one a lot in like a casual setting. She asks what I do. And I say, yeah, I have this website. And basically, if you're between the age of 18 and 40 and you've never had the sex before, this is a website for you. And, she just doesn't get it, right? Like the joke just flies right over her head. And she gets this real serious look on her face. And she's like, oh, honey, is that your experience? Is the site about a community of people, like you virgins? I mean, just so ridiculous. So yeah, look, if I ever get the chance to meet, the Don himself, DB, aka Big Dick, Donald Big Dick Parham, then I just pray that the PSM never came up. I mean, I can't face the humiliation. All right. That is going to do it for this edition of the Solo Pod. If you haven't subscribed yet to NBA DFS or NBA props, get on that. Season starts tonight. It is time to grind. 4. Jerry. 4. Producer Luke. I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.